Hello everyone. In some cities around the world, you can walk through public spaces and feel something immediately. The roads are clean, people stand in line, cars stop for pedestrians, public toilets are usable, there is less noise, less carelessness. Even in small everyday situations, you notice a pattern. People do not throw trash casually and do not talk louder on phones. They do not treat shared spaces like no one owns them. They do not behave as if public places mean meaningless. Now compare that to what we often see in some other parts. Trash thrown on roads, walls stained and damaged, people cutting lines, loud unnecessary honking, loudly talking on the phones, public toilets so neglected that people avoid them entirely. And in many places, a general feeling that once you step outside your home, the responsibility disappears. And whenever this topic comes up, people usually give one simple answer. They say, people just don't know how to behave socially. But is that really the full truth? Is public behavior only a matter of personal manners? Is it only about discipline? Is it only about whether people are good or bad? Well, this may be partially true. However, there is something much deeper happening underneath. Because the truth is, public behavior is not just about behavior only. It is about psychology, it is about environment, it is about systems, and it is about what people are taught, what they repeatedly see, and what they come to believe about shared life. And once you see this clearly, your entire understanding of public behavior changes. In this video today, let us see the hidden psychology behind public behavior. Why people behave so differently in shared places. Why blame alone does not solve the issue. How homes, schools, systems, and social attitudes shape public behavior. And what actually needs to change if we want healthier societies. Let us understand this properly. So let us see first what is the problem. Well, the problem of public behavior is deeply linked to three larger forces that people often ignore. These are not small issues, they are powerful forces that shape how societies function. And when these three come together, public behavior begins to change. Let us look at them one by one. The first problem, disconnection from responsibility. Many people do not see maintaining shared spaces as their responsibility. And this mindset begins much earlier than we think. It begins in childhood. In many homes, children are taught cleanliness is only for inside the house. They keep saying to children, keep your room clean, do not dirty the sofa, do not spill food on the bed, do not make the house messy. But when it happens outside the house, very often the standards change. Trash can be thrown out casually with the mindset that someone else will clean the street, someone else will sweep the corridor, someone else will pick up the waste, and someone else will manage the problem. This creates a dangerous split in the mind. Inside home, there is responsibility, and outside home, there is detachment. And once this split becomes normal, public behavior suffers. This is why I often say that public behavior is not only a public issue, it is also a home issue. Because if children grow up learning that care ends where personal ownership ends, then they do not develop respect for shared environments. And this mindset is reinforced socially too. In many places, cleanliness is not seen as a shared civic responsibility. It is seen as somebody else's job. Now that somebody may be a sanitation worker, a cleaner, a helper, a lower paid worker, an invisible labor force. So people mentally separate themselves from the act of maintaining common spaces. And once people's psychology detach themselves from responsibility, behavior starts to deteriorate very quickly. This is why some people will keep their home clean, spotless, but casually litter outside. Not because they are unaware, but because their idea of responsibility is extremely limited. And that is not just a personal flaw, it is a learned pattern. The second problem, broken systems and neglected infrastructure. Even when people want to behave better, systems often do not support better behavior. This is one of the biggest truths which people ignore. Many people say, why are people behaving like this? But a more intelligent question here is, what kind of infrastructure and systems exist around them? Because human behavior is heavily shaped by the environment. If there is no clean working public toilet, what do people do? If roads are poorly designed, what happens to the lane discipline? If footpaths are missing, broken, or occupied, how do pedestrians behave? If there are no functioning bins, inconsistent collection system, and no reliable waste separation structure, how do people build better habits? Now, this does not justify careless behavior, but it does explain why moral lecture alone fails. People do not behave in a vacuum. Behavior is shaped by friction. If doing the right thing is difficult, inconvenient, embarrassing, or practically impossible, many people will stop doing it. This is basic psychology. Good behavior becomes sustainable when systems make it easier. Bad behavior spread when systems quietly support it. Think about it. In some areas, people stand in line because the system is structured around line behavior. The signs are clear, the spaces are designated properly, movement is managed, there are consequences for disorder. In other places, the system is so weak that people feel they must push, rush, and compete just to survive the situation. So the issue is not simply that people have no sense. Often the system itself is producing the behavior. And this is why some people behave one way in airports, malls, or well-maintained spaces, and in another way somewhere else. The same person who behaves orderly in one place may behave carelessly in another. Why? Because environment changes behavior. When a place is already clean, orderly, and regulated, people are more likely to fall in line. When a place is chaotic, neglected, and badly managed, careless behavior becomes contagious. Which brings us to an important psychological principle. People copy the norm they see around them. If everyone is following the rules, the rule feels real. If no one is following it, it begins to feel optional. So good public behavior is not built only by good intentions. It is built by the systems that support good habits and make disorder costly. The third problem, empathy for shared life. Now we come to the third and perhaps the deepest problem, empathy. Public behavior improves when people feel that their actions affect others. It gets worse when people emotionally disconnect from people around them. Because at its core, good public behavior is not only about discipline, it is about concern. Concern for strangers, concern for workers, concern for people you may never meet, concern for the person who has to deal with the mess you leave behind. When someone litters casually, there is often a deeper psychological absence. They are not thinking someone else will have to pick this up. When someone blasts audio loudly in public place, they are not thinking they may disturb somebody else. When someone cuts a line, they are not thinking my urgency does not make others less important. This is where public behavior becomes a moral and emotional issue, not just a behavior. And empathy too is not suddenly learned in adulthood. It is shaped early. At home, when children see whether adults think of others. At school, when they learn whether shared space is respected. In society, when they see whether people in public roles are treated with dignity. If children grow up seeing helpers disrespected, cleaners ignored, and public workers treated as inferior, then they do not develop a healthy respect for the invisible labor that keeps shared life functioning. And without that respect, empathy remains extremely weak. Then public space becomes psychologically very cheap. Something to use, not to honor. Something to exploit, not to preserve. That is why public behavior is deeply linked to how society views dignity, labor, and other human beings. Now, let us see at a counter argument. At this point, some people may say, but come on, people should just know better. And yes, to an extent, they should. adults must take responsibility for their actions. We cannot remove personal accountability from the conversations. But here is the problem with stopping at that argument. It explains very little, because if just know better was enough, societies would change much faster than they do. People know many things. They know smoking is harmful. They know sleep matters. They know anger damages relationships. They know littering is wrong. And still, behavior does not automatically change. Why? Because human behavior is not driven by knowledge alone. It is driven by habits, norms, systems, emotions, and repeated social conditioning. So the real goal here is not simply to say people should know better. The real goal here is to understand what produces better public behavior at scale. Because once we understand that, we stop moralizing and start solving. Let us see now what can be done. So this is the practical part. If public behavior is shaped by psychology, system, and culture, then what can actually change it? Well, there are several levels to this solution. First, responsibility must begin at home. Children must not only be taught to keep private spaces clean, they must be taught to respect shared spaces too. They should grow up seeing the adults cleaning after themselves, thinking of others, and avoiding treating responsibility as someone else's job. Simple acts matter. Putting trash in the right place, leaving shared spaces usable, returning things properly, not making avoidable messes for others to handle. These behaviors train the mind. The second, schools must teach shared responsibility more intentionally. Schools should not teach public behavior as an extra lesson. It should be part of how school life works. Children should understand why line discipline matters, why noise affects others, why shared spaces deserve care, why workers who clean and maintain spaces deserve respect, why public behavior is not about fear, it is about community. When children repeatedly practice these habits, they become normal practices. Third, public infrastructure must improve. Clean toilets, visible bins, reliable maintenance, walkable footpaths, safe pedestrian spaces, thoughtful urban design, clear system for waste handling. Without infrastructure, public behavior becomes harder to sustain. Fourth, consequences must exist. We are not talking about brutal punishments or humiliations here, but predictable consequences. Rules matter when they are enforced. If disorder is always ignored, disorder becomes a norm. The fifth, society must rebuild empathy. This may be the most important part. People need to remember that public behavior is about other human beings. It is about the worker who has to clean the mess, the child who uses the same park, the stranger who needs the same footpath, the elderly person who suffers from noise, disorder, and carelessness. Once empathy becomes active, public behavior changes at a deeper level. Because then people stop asking only, "What do I feel like doing?" and start asking, "What kind of shared life am I helping to create?" Time for a reflection. So the next time when you see bad public behavior, you should not stop at only blame. Yes, accountability matters. But if we truly want better public life, we must build better psychological foundations for it. At home, in classrooms, in the way cities are designed, in the way rules are implemented, in a way we teach dignity, labor, and concern for others. Because when people learn to respect what is shared, society changes. And when society changes, every life begins to change. The streets feel different, the noise feels different, the movement changes, the emotional quality of life itself begins to change for better. And that is why this issue is not small. It is not just about manners, it is about the kind of society we are building and who we are becoming. If you found this helpful, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. And to keep growing with me, click the video on the screen. That's where we continue building this work. I will see you in the next one.